Acapulco, Mexico. This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. We're back in Las Vegas at Freedom Fest, which was actually the first place I ever interviewed you at.
That's right.
I didn't even think about it.
I'd never even heard of you before, which is appalling, right? I should have known.
Well,
but we had a great interview.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
I was happy to be interviewed by a guy who wanted to know about anarchism. I was like, this is a great guy.
Yeah, I still remember. You're like, what's your show called? Anarchast? Wow, I didn't think anyone cared about that kind of stuff.
But it wasn't that old at the time, right? It was early on.
It was like in the first year or two, so it's probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, that was before I became really famous. That's before I went viral.
Yeah, you're the big deal now. And so that was the first time I ran into you, and that was really interesting. And then I've had you on since then, of course. Sure. You were at Anarchapulco this year, which is great.
That was so fun. What a great event. And can I just say something? Because it's a wonderful event. And sometimes people look at it and think, well, this is too eccentric for me. You know, this is, do I really want to hang around anarchists for a week? The answer is, yes, you do. You do. It's a wonderful event, full of intellectual content and so much fun and such a beautiful city. I really expect good things of you, Jeff, but that conference was just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and we're expecting next year to be even better, so it should be great. We're going to have to be right on the beach again next year.
It's fun. It's interesting. I think it's hard to say, but first of all, you feel free in that city. There's a sense of freedom, right? But also to be around so many other people who believe in freedom, it gives you a sense of how good life could be. Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people say, it's like the 1 week of the year where it's kind of like it's the way it should be all year, but unfortunately it's not.
And there are other places. Workfest is a very similar situation, but I tell you, there's something about leaving the United States, to be outside of the technical bounds of U.S. government jurisdiction by itself is a freeing thing, I gotta say.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting because when you came down in February, you were talking about how you talked to some people who are working in the immigration and customs, and you were saying they're going to put in some really hardcore stuff. And it was just this week that I saw a number of articles come out. They're putting in like iris scanning, facial recognition for Americans coming and going out of the U.S. now, and you said that was going to happen.
Well, Jeff, and that was because this happened to be on my way back in the United States from your conference. And I saw an official from the I think he was from Customs, and he was running the Customs Department in the Atlanta airport. And I asked him, I said, on my way out, I think it was on my way out to Anarchapulco, it was, where I had the iris scanning, the facial recognition thing, not pre-boarding or something like that, like while you're about to get into the airplane. That's where it was. So you've already had them take your ticket, you've already gone through all the other security things, you've hung out, you had your beers and whatever, and you're walking down that that alleyway that leads to the airplane, and right before you get on the airplane, that's when they did, what were you going to do, refuse at that point? It was crazy. So, of course, you go along with it. It was very alarming. So I asked this official, I said, what happened to me? It's very strange. On the way out, this is what happened. He goes, that is not a TSA thing. I don't remember the details. He said, I think it's it's a customs thing. And I said, well, is the plan to expand this? And he said to me, he goes, well, look around. We're having to scan everybody coming into the country. I just don't have enough staff, Obviously, we should do the same thing to people leaving the country that we do with people coming into the country. And he just took that as a given. No difference. Same thing. He said, that's what we want to do, but I don't have the staff. Look around, give me the staff, I'll give you your scanning. And I said, thank you, it's been fascinating talking to you. Nice guy.
Horrifying.
Right. Thank you. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, he had no consciousness that he was saying anything that was unusual. I think that's the way these bureaucrats think. I mean, their whole lives are trying to control other people, and if that's all you're constantly doing,
and build their department bigger too, right? That would seem to be like his big thing.
Yeah,
right? If I had more people, I could, really oppress them.
I could be horrified, right? More and more control. That's all they think about is control. I mean, maybe I should have said to him something like, "Sir, does it bother you the impact of your job on human dignity?" I might have said something like that. I don't know if he would have even understood it.
It would have went right over his head. Yeah, they don't. They're just on a different wavelength.
Yeah, who are you, Thomas Jefferson?
Some founding father. Take down those statues.
Right?
Yeah, pretty crazy. One of the things I wanted to talk to you, though, is I still don't get this left-right thing that's going on. It seems like it's more and more in the libertarian thing, and there seems to be this ongoing battle.
I know.
And I just don't really get it. What's your first of all, what's your take on anarchy voluntarism? Does there need to be a left-right?
No, I don't think so. I think there's just, you really, and somebody asked me this earlier, that what is freedom? Freedom is the absence of control to prohibit you from doing peaceful things. I mean, that's it. If you're permitted to do things that are peaceful in your personal interest, and nobody's using violence against you, you're free. And if everybody's allowed to do that, then everyone's free. It's not that complicated, right? So no, we don't need left and right under these conditions. We just don't. In fact, my old friend Murray Rothbard used to say this all the time. He worked so hard most of his life to try to get us out of the left-right paradigm. And yeah, it's sad to me. I think, Jeff, and what you're alluding to is the fact that you get online, you get on Twitter, you're going to get these camps. The left libertarians versus the right libertarians. They're battling out all the time. I sometimes just feel like a conscientious objector in this war because the categories of left and right really come from, early 19th century German philosophy. The work of Fichte and Hegel, and they didn't believe in individual liberty. They thought the apotheosis of history was in the state. And the only dispute between them was like how the state should be run. Should the Prussian church be involved? Should it be the Prussian state? Should it be a different kind of state? Well, that's not our view at all. So, it seems to me as libertarians, we should do our best to avoid these left-right categories as much as possible. Now, I know it's difficult online these days because, the crossfires, it's just the shooting war. It doesn't never stop. And it's funny to me because I've gotten good humored about it, but, like 2 years ago when I started writing against Trump, or against the rise of the alt-right and these kinds of right-wing collectivism, then people started calling me a leftist, and I was like, wait, no, and what sense could that possibly be true? I'm not a leftist. What? This is a
leftist capitalist?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. But then, of course, the left is still claiming that I'm some sort of apologist for corporate fascism. So you get. I think if you're doing libertarianism right, you're going to get attacked by both sides. I really do.
I just don't get where it's coming from because I didn't see it that much until the last few years.
Yeah.
And I'm still not even sure what they're even arguing about.
Well, there's principle to, there's issues over immigration, and that is a complicated subject. It's, and I don't know, there's that. There's, I think the gay marriage issue set off a lot of problems in the United States politics because on one hand, I think libertarians want, freedom for same-sex marriage, it's true, but we also don't want, wedding chapels forced to perform ceremonies that are contrary to the conscience, But it seems like in U.S. politics, you can't ever have the right kinds of laws. Everything is terrible, Yeah, on one hand you get freedom for same-sex marriage, on the other hand you get, a central state punishing, wedding chapels for failing to perform the ceremonies and driving them out of business. It's like everything is either illegal or mandatory. That's why it always is in the United States. We never get anything right.
Yeah.
So that gave rise to a kind of a cultural conflict within libertarianism. I really wished we'd get away from it. But you noticed at Anarchapulco, you didn't feel it.
No, Anarchapulco's been just so far amazing. Like, there's no conflicts.
Some people might identify as right.
But we did have some people, that's right. We had T.J. Brown or that guy T, who is now more a alt-right-ish.
I know. The kid breaks my heart. I don't even know when he's telling the truth or so, because I'm very good friends with him. He hangs out of my apartment all the time. We are drinking together, and I love him dearly. But sometimes I think he's trolling the trolls. I have a hard time believing him. When he says I
don't really get what he's saying because he's sort of all over the place. So then you can't tell when he's joking.
I know. I don't even think he knows what he's saying. He'll announce that I now consider myself a fascist fascist, and it's just so funny.
Well, he knows he gets views by doing that.
I call him my black Nazi friend, and
That's sort of one of the funny things about this left-right thing. The two bigger people on the sort of right side are T.J. Brown and Eric July of Backwards. They're both black guys, and I don't understand what they're even like. I thought the left-right, and you can correct me on this. I thought it meant like it was more economic, like it was like socialist versus capitalist. I thought that's what left-right meant, but how does weddings, gay weddings, what does left-right even mean?
I understand why you say that the left is socialism, right was capitalism. I think during the because you were around in the 1980s, right?
Yep.
A little bit? Yeah.
10 years old.
Okay, well, 90s. But at least, so I was a child of the Cold War. That's how we always put it in those days. You know, the left was like communism, and the right was like
that's
capitalism.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that was the world I grew up in.
So it's changed.
Yeah, I think it's completely changed. Something's
just like everything, the words all changed.
I know. Sometime in the last 10 years, these definitions changed. Now the right means more like theocracy, restrictionism, the war on drugs. That was the way the New York Times talks. You know. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing. Our language doesn't make any sense. The New York Times says Rand Paul objected to the Senate bill repealing Obamacare because it wasn't conservative enough. Okay, what could that possibly mean? What does that sentence even mean? Not conservative enough. I mean, you can't even. That doesn't. I mean, you can't make any sense of that sentence. I mean, he objected to it that it didn't go far enough in deregulating the healthcare markets. I mean, in what world would you call that conservative? You know? But so the New York Times just freely uses this language. It's all very strange.
I think it's probably on purpose, right? So that if you get people confused enough, how could they?
Confused.
Can we?
Yeah, we don't have language to even talk about our own things, our own aspirations, our own politics. We don't have the language anymore. It's tough for me. I mean, what I really want to call myself, ideally I call myself an anarchist, right? Ideally. And probably most often, I'm just happy to call. But if I'm talking to people who might think that was about to, take out a hand grenade, what I would like to call myself is a liberal. In the old liberal tradition, right?
That's changed.
But that's very difficult for people to process because that word liberalism, liberal, it means something different to people. It's not clear what it means anymore.
That's why I'm asking you, because I'm trying to make sense. I don't know what it means anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have this thick, thin libertarianism.
Oh, no, I never got into that. I never got involved in that debate. You know, my friend Charles Johnson wrote the original article on that, and that guy is just a genius. And if you read his original article, it's very complicated, extremely academic, and drawn from a sort of postmodern literary theory. And you read the article, and he's just describing 5 kinds of thick and 3 kinds of thin, and it's just, I don't know if any of it's true, but it was a very beautifully written article. But somehow it got reduced. This always happens. People put things into little simple packages and then start fighting each other over it. You're thin, yeah. You know, so I never was involved in that debate at all. I mean, I admire Charles a lot. I'm not sure he's right about this. I don't know. I mean, we should feel free to play around with ideas and not get overly emotional and form tribes, you know, and start beating each other up. It doesn't actually make any sense. I want to, as a libertarian especially, I want the freedom to explore new ways of thinking, new ways of looking at the world. And if we as libertarians start beating up on people, brutalizing people, because they're holding a different perspective, we're not learning anymore. We're not learning from others. We're not learning new things about the world. And I think that's so important for libertarians to stay open-minded, to discover new things. And you do this, you know, you're finding out new ways of living, new ways of eating, new ways of managing your life. And that's not sure you have an adaptive mindset. I think that's what libertarians need. I think that's inherent in liberty, you know, the presumption we don't know everything. There's probably even more wonderful things out there that I could discover, and I'm free to do so. And that's the way you approach life, and I think it's a good way.
Well, to me, it's like when it comes to freedom and liberty, and I don't like conflict to begin with. I'm just not a very conflict sort of person, as most people can tell by my interviews. Like, even if someone's saying something I disagree with, I'm rarely going to stomp all over them. But it's basically, if you basically believe you don't aggress against others, then I have no problem with you in general.
Yeah.
Like in general. Like everything else, as long as you're not aggressing against others, you could believe the craziest stuff, whatever, to me. And so I just don't get why everyone wants to nitpick it down and go after.
Yeah, maybe it's boredom. I don't. Could be. Also, libertarians get frustrated that they're not having a big effect on politics, so they turn on each other because they just get bored. It's like,
well, that's not a good use of time.
Right. The only people who pay attention to my views are other libertarians, so I might as well just annoy them. So they'll acknowledge my existence or something. I don't know, but. Yeah, there's so much we could be doing productively in libertarianism besides this kind of Civil War stuff. Especially these days. You think about it, Jeff. The most glorious technologies of our time were invented by people with an anarchist cast of mind. That's amazing. Like blockchain. Like Bitcoin. These things are beautiful. They were discovered by people who thought like anarchists.
Yeah, absolutely. If you read Satoshi Nakamoto's papers, it reads just like like you were writing it. I'm not saying that you were Satoshi Nakamoto, but a very similar mindset to what we have.
No, it's absolutely true. And I think it's true to some extent for all kinds of entrepreneurship. You don't really think of innovations within the framework of an existing system of regulation. Government feels like it knows everything. Everything's locked down. They want to freeze everything in place. There's no progress ever, according to a bureaucrat. It's just a matter of control and gluing everything down exactly as it is. Everybody just must mind and obey. The entrepreneur can't think that way. You have to think about disruption. You have to think about new possibilities, new ways of living, things that the regulations can't control or understand. So there's an element of anarchism in every act of entrepreneurship.
That's interesting. It's also interesting that you brought up the bureau rats earlier. They have the opposite incentive of free markets. So his whole, maybe you can grab that mouse, his whole thing was, how can I get more employees, right? Like what entrepreneur thinks that way, right? Like, I need to hire 100 more people for what? I don't even care. I just want to have them all work for me.
So right. We just need more resources.
But that's, in the government world, the bureaucrat world, the bigger department that you're the manager of, that's your prestige level. That's how you get a bigger check as well.
Yeah.
You've got the largest department. So everyone's trying to grow their departments. It's the exact opposite.
And they're always suffering, right? I don't have enough resources. I don't have employees. I got to get more people.
If only we could steal more money. And
then everything would be right. Yeah, it's always the case.
And they have no idea what to even, how they want to help people. Because that guy that you talked to at the airport, he wasn't thinking, how can I help the people get through a good day at the airport?
It's so funny. One of the most amusing trends in government policy today is they all want to imagine themselves to be service-oriented. And they talk like this, so the IRS is always concerned about customer service.
Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah, right. Everything is a service. And when you go to the TSA, like, we're here to serve you. That's not believable. I was in front of a judge. Did I tell you the story? So I was at traffic court the other day. Always in traffic court. So the lady
Land of the free.
right. So the lady in front of me, gets her fine, her ticket, whatever. And this judge is kind of an enlightened, progressive judge. And so, therefore, he is wasting as much people's time as possible. So he says to her, "Now, ma'am, before I dismiss you from the bench, let me ask you: are there ways that you think that this court could have served you better?" Okay, this is the lady who just got pillaged, right? She, kidnapped by a cop. Her earnings stolen. She has to wake up early in the morning and go. She doesn't want to be there. She hasn't been served. This is ridiculous. But he's asking, how could we have served you better? I know in her mind she's thinking a lot of things, right?
Just leave me alone.
Right. But instead she said, she thought for a minute, she goes, well, wouldn't it be nice if, for example, I had to get up at 4 a.m. to get here and get in line. And I've been here for 5 hours and, it's taken a long time. What if you had a system where I could go online and just choose the 11:15 spot and show up and come to see you. That way it'd be much better for me. And you could just see he just bristled. He said, well, ma'am, let me tell you, we are doing the best we can around here. We're working hard. Hope you see that. And he lashed out at her. And she goes, well, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I thought you asked. You asked. I told you. And he's like, well, that's it. You're dismissed.
Another week in jail.
Another week in jail. They dismissed
Contempt of court.
So when it came to, I was next. I thought, well, I'm not going to fall for that. For that. How can we serve you better?
You're doing perfect.
You were awesome. You're
impossible to do a better job of extorting and kidnapping. Impossible.
Can I pay you even more, buddy?
Dealing with the system, the bureaucrats. But you brought up cryptocurrencies. I know you're really getting into this, and I've been into it since about 2011, $3.
Oh.
And I saw right off the bat, I was like, this changes so much.
So you saw it before I did. It took me until 2013. I had to be
pretty good.
You know what my problem was, Jeff? I think I had too much theory dating from the old world that was preventing me from seeing things. Sometimes you can have too much knowledge, and a lot of it is bullshit, But you have to scrape out your brain. You have to do spring cleaning to understand things. And it's very fascinating. You saw it in 2011. It took me another 2 years before I saw it.
That's still very early, and it's great that you realized that was the issue. And I had so many people who were into Austrian economics back in 2011, even today, but very rarely now. They've sort of figured it out.
Right.
And they'd always bring up, what is it, the theory of money or something?
Yeah, regression theory.
Yeah, and I always they'd always say, listen, according to the theory of money, this cannot be money. And I'm like, didn't you just say it's a theory? This is not the rule of money, right? This is a theory. That's the thing that I think they're missing. It's a theory, right?
Well, Groucho Marx used to use this line in his movies. Who are you going to believe? Me or your own eyes? Which is such a funny line. But anyway, it's like this in Bitcoin. It's like, who are you going to believe? Your own eyes or my theory? Come on. It's working. It's beautiful.
Well, I'm not a huge Austrian economics guy. My partner at Bugos is, and of course you, and all the Mises Institute and all that kind of stuff. I read it and I enjoy it and I like a lot of it, but I'm not going to read the big, thick books on it. I'm not that big into it.
In the case of Mises and the regression theorem, there are only really two passages that matter. One is from 1912, Theory of Money and Credit, where he very clearly says, for something to become a money, it must first have a use value.
Right. Very
clear. Okay. In 1949, in Human Action, actually 1940 probably, but it wasn't translated in 49, he said, in order for something to become a money, it must have use values such as a commodity. Okay? So he adds this new line. I think it was just a little bit sloppy. 1912, he was correct. In order for something to become a money, it must be based on something with use value. So the question is, how do you apply that to blockchain or to Bitcoin? And the answer is this. Bitcoin is valuable because of the service use of the blockchain. And what is that service? The blockchain allows us to cobble together any kind of bundle of information into an immutable packet and port it peer-to-peer to anybody else in the world for virtually free and virtually instantly. Is that a valuable thing? Yes, it is. So if you can add a token to that service, we can call it a cryptocurrency. It's not any more complicated than that. So in that sense, it perfectly complies with Mises's so-called regression theorem. It's just a matter of understanding. People think the regression theorem means that it must be like gold or something physical that you hold that is a bartered commodity. It's not true. It can also be a service. Anything that's valuable can be tokenized and become a money.
Yeah, the real sort of genius of Bitcoin is that in the digital world, everything can be copied. So I can copy, I wrote an article, I sent it over to you, you just have a copy. I've still got it, you've got it now. The genius of Bitcoin is you can't make the copies. So once I send the Bitcoin to you, I don't have it anymore. And that's in the digital world. That's the real genius of it.
You're exactly right that's the genius. It hacked the digital world to make it behave more like private property. That's an amazing thing. And that's due to this ledger that is distributed, where you have to have proof of work, to enter, to change the ledger. You have to have the authority of ownership to change the ledger. And any change of the ledger has to be confirmed by other nodes. And through this method, we've managed to sort of cobble together a digital world of private property, and that's amazing. That's amazing. There's so much amazing about blockchain. When I first started looking at it, I wanted to know, why is Bitcoin valuable? In a sense, that's a trivial question. What I've realized since then, and more recently, is that blockchain solves the oldest human need. And we've tried every kind of technology to accommodate this need. And the need is this: we have to know who owns what. We have to have clear and unambiguous titles to property. And since the ancient world, we've used various systems for this. Scrawling on stones, papyrus, which tended to not be immutable. Parchment was an improvement, but it wasn't very good for numbers, so they invented vellum. So look at the early Medici accounts that were written on vellum, because you could write numbers and very, very precise about it. The more precise you are about your ownership rights and property claims, the less chance there is for deception and fraud and loss and confusion and arguments and disputes and war. So we've been trying for arguably 150,000 years to come up with the best possible system for eliciting social assent to what is yours and what is mine. That way, we have a greater chance of being peaceful between us and winning from each other's value. So the blockchain figured out how to do this in a way that's more perfect than any other system we've ever had. I mean, this is what databases in the 1970s did. The problem with databases is that they're centralized. You have to trust that somebody's doing it the right way.
Right.
With the blockchain, you've got essentially a ledger that the whole world can simultaneously observe, thereby reducing the chance of error and fraud. And that's it. I mean, that is the core of blockchain technology. And once you understand that, so in that sense, Bitcoin is a little bit of a distraction. It's like, I was fixated on Bitcoin. I should have been looking at what is blockchain and why is it valuable? And when I discovered that it was an improvement on one of the oldest needs we have as human beings, then a lot of it made sense to me.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how a lot of these people bring up this regression theory of money. It's like, well, what about dollars? What use value does a piece of paper with a dead criminal printed on it have?
No, it's a fascinating thing. I don't know if you've ever tried to perform this experiment in your mind, but if you could somehow turn a switch to make the dollar not valuable, even disappear. Turn off the dollar on Monday, turn the dollar back on Friday, and see if you could make that same stupid piece of paper valuable. It wouldn't be any more valuable than the toilet paper in your bathroom. You could never recreate it. It would never come back. There's no basis for the dollar's value at all.
Just people are accustomed to it.
It's just, it's tradition. It's a custom, and it's that memory of trade. But there's nothing about it that would cause it to be money today if we were starting over again. Whereas Litecoin, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ether, Ethereum Classic, all these other assets, Factoid. I found a hilarious digital asset yesterday named Time. I'll tell you about it. It's so funny. But anyway, I love all this stuff. But these have an actual basis for their value. Much more, you're right, so much more than the dollar. Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like the whole space it's like the free market, and watching just the cryptocurrency space is just like.
Do you watch it?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I've been a huge fan of it for years.
Yeah, what's your favorite? My favorite platform to watch is. I go to Brave New Coin all the time because I like their interface and I like the way they have the white papers for everything. But just to watch the asset categories, on the Ethereum platform, and to see all the innovations taking place and all the currencies and the market capitalization and the waves. And you've been around in the space a long time. You're not rattled by anything, but 2 weeks ago there was a market correction. And sure enough, all the headlines were, well, is this the end of Bitcoin? Has Bitcoin seen its The best days and straight down from now. And I started getting calls from the media, and it's like, do I really have to do another interview on the same subject? It's like unbelievable.
I've never seen something declared dead so many times.
I know, it's just, and every single, so it fell from 3,000 to 2,000. And
where it was like a month and a half ago, no big deal.
Exactly. And now, by the way, it's up to 2,600 again, as of last I checked this morning. But so the newspaper, the press was calling me up, going, is it the end of Bitcoin, Jeffrey Tucker? What do you say? I'm like, no, that's not the end of Bitcoin. They were saying that when it fell from $30 to $11. I mean, it's just.
Oh, I've seen them all. And,
isn't it interesting, Jeff, how there's an illusion with it? I was thinking about this. In the early days, when Bitcoin reached $30 and it fell to $20, there was no panic. It was like, $30, $20, But you add two zeros. 3,000 to 2,000. Panic!
It's down to $1,000.
Yeah, down to that. It's like, no, it's the same down. It's the same down as if it fell from $3 to $2. It's not any different.
Well, I remember when with Mt. Gox, actually before they actually got kind of exposed as having stolen or lost or defrauded the people, they actually had a glitch on their site one day, and Bitcoin was at 30. It had just gone from $3 when I found out about it to $30, and then overnight it went down to 0.01 cents or something on Mt. Gox. Can you imagine if you could go back in time and just buy $10,000 worth at 0.01?
Yeah, they probably weren't actually selling. It was probably a technical.
Probably, but anyway, my point is, like, we've gone through all these sort of issues, and it's, it's not a big problem. But here's one thing that I've been thinking about lately. I was thinking, okay, if the fiat currencies, and you just brought this up, what if it just all goes to zero? And it totally could. All this government debt, they're printing money like crazy right now. We're basically at QE to infinity, basically, at this moment in time. They're holding interest rates near zero forever because there's too much debt. As soon as the whole system's going to collapse at some point. So if the fiat currencies collapse, what could become money? Well, think about it. And there's a lot of people out there who really hate Bitcoin. They're like, gold and silver. It's like, am I really going to use a gold coin to buy something in China that I regularly buy, like a Samsung phone from Korea? Am I going to send over a couple gold coins, or am I going to send some Bitcoin? Right. It's obvious which in the digital age is going to become the most used
That's
money.
Right, and for two reasons. Cryptocurrency has at least two major advantages on gold. One is that it takes up no space in the physical world, and it doesn't weigh anything. So you take all the properties of gold, put it into a cryptocurrency, and add two awesome new features. You've now made gold irrelevant, really.
I wonder if gold will become irrelevant. I don't think so, not yet at all. Because cryptocurrencies are still too new. We could see anything could come out of left field and derail a lot of these things.
Yeah, I know. It really is new. We are, not even 10 years into this. I guess the white paper came out in late 2008. It was, I guess, October 2008, right? And then the Genesis block was January 2009.
Oh, you might be right.
Yeah. So, we're not...
And what's the total market cap of gold? It's like, $8 trillion or something?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Of all gold ever mined that we know of that's still around.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
It's around 8 trillion. Does that number sound right? And Bitcoin's currently about, 30 billion? 40 billion?
I think all the crypto assets
right?
combined. It's not Bitcoin alone. I think that you have to combine Ether and everything else.
No, but I'm just talking Bitcoin. Yeah. There's about, 16 million Bitcoin, and it's currently at 2,600.
Okay, you might be right. Maybe it is 32.
Yeah, it's under 40 billion right now.
Okay.
So let's just say it's 40 billion. Gold is about, 8 trillion, roughly. Mm-hmm. Let's just say it's 4 trillion, so I can do the math because I went to government school, so it's really hard. So it's about 1,000 times more value in gold than Bitcoin currently, right?
Yep.
That's really interesting because if what we're talking about here, and we're seriously talking about it, as especially yourself, a very educated Austrian economics, you work with Murray Rothbard and people like this, you know your stuff, and you're actually contemplating, is gold been completely obsolete now in terms of Bitcoin?
I wondered this 3 years ago, and you've been watching the markets for a long time. Bitcoin is a safe haven. Maybe gold still is to some extent, but Bitcoin is really being treated as a safe haven. More and more.
I've definitely seen it myself.
Right? You experience it, you feel it, right?
I see a lot of people who wouldn't have touched it 3-4 years ago, and now they're like, I better get some Bitcoin because who knows what could happen.
And it's complicated for people. It's really complicated for people. I've been doing crazy things like, I've developed my own little private personal portfolio of all these crypto assets, and and I trade them, and it's like, but I think it's very, very complicated. I think it's very complicated. I would never expect my mother to do this in a million years.
Absolutely not.
So it's far from being mainstream in just in terms of being able to use these platforms. I'm on Poloniex. I don't know if you've heard that. Yeah, and I use it every day, to move things here, move things there, and it's fun, But I don't think it's for normal. This is not for.
No, we're still in the early stages for sure. But think about the newer generations, right? They're growing up with those smartphones in their hands. Like, kids don't even have computers now. Like, that's how much they're just got phones now.
You're right. They're over that incredulity of towards digits.
So if their money is just on their phone, that's no problem for them.
No, you're right. In fact, it's very interesting you mentioned that. I was shocked at how quickly this payment provider system called Venmo took hold. I mean, it was like in the blink of an eye, we went from not having a mainstream payment system that you could use through social media to having one, and now it's just the most common thing. Everybody under a certain age, under the age of 25, Venmo is part of their life. There's Venmo this, Venmo that, and they just trade back and forth. It's very interesting how that just sort of took over. It was fascinating to me too that there have been all these other companies that have tried to do it, and nobody ever quite has achieved that epic level of distribution that Venmo did in less than a year. And I think it had something to do with the fact that they permitted social logins. In other words, your Facebook account, your Twitter account, or whatever. Maybe it's just Facebook, I don't know. And then the people that you're able to send money to are basically your friend network on Facebook. And so it becomes a kind of a new payment system. It's rather amazing. Part of the issue is, like, how come nobody saw that this was a good idea before? Because we think of finance as like a serious thing involving money, and then we think of social media as a stupid thing involving selfies. But it took a brilliant mind to go, oh wait, there's both these add value and let's combine them. And then poof, you got Venmo. Now Venmo is not Bitcoin, of course. It uses a third-party intermediary. So if at some point, I think some people have tried this, but if at some point we can get this unity of cryptocurrency, crypto assets with people's social media profiles and stuff like that, it would make it so much easier.
Yeah, well, it's already starting to some extent with things like Steam. So
Yeah,
there's people working on all this stuff.
That token's doing very well, actually.
It's done quite well, yeah, and I've made a lot of money on it.
Isn't that great?
It's amazing.
I was a little bit snobby to look. I'm always behind. It seems like I'm not, but I am. As I look back over the last 10 years, I have been a little bit of a slow adopter. I've been the guy going, I don't really know about that, and then it turns out to be true. So I should have jumped on that when it first came along. But I didn't, because I was like, you see, at that point, there was a thing that going around that in those days we called them altcoins, and the Bitcoin maximalists, so-called, and I'm like the leader of the Bitcoin maximalists. None of us believed in the altcoins. We all, I was all in favor of them existing, but I didn't really think they would ever go anywhere. Well, now I look at it, they don't even call them altcoins anymore. They have a real presence. We're talking about Ether.
And totally different use applications as well, right? Ethereum's for smart contracts, Steam's for social media.
Yeah.
So I think when a lot of people were first kind of like, well, Bitcoin, and I'm still kind of like that myself. When we talk about a cryptocurrency that's used as a money, I'm still Bitcoin, nothing comes close to it. Dash is getting a little bit more, but nothing comes close to Bitcoin. It's just got the biggest network.
Just to be able to spend, yeah.
Well, it has the biggest network. It's got the biggest amount of people working on it. It's got the biggest amount of things like wallets and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So nothing comes close to, in terms of currency right now, to Bitcoin. So, but I think a lot of people in the last few years, when they looked at other altcoins, as they called them, they assumed they were all just a cryptocurrency competing with Bitcoin, but they didn't realize they have other purposes, other uses.
Purpose. Especially these digital assets, as you say. But it's so funny because, I remember when Bitcoin went, was at $14 and nobody could believe it, right? Nobody could believe that this was actually happening. I mean, even I was in shock, what is going on? Now, a $14 crypto is, nobody pays attention to it. Isn't that amazing?
I've been shocked actually how well the cryptocurrencies have done. I did not expect it would happen this fast. I knew it was going to happen.
And how many cryptos are above $14?
It's a lot. Crazy.
I don't know, 40, 50. And in terms of market capitalization, which can be a very different thing, there are there's probably 25 of the top crypto assets that have market cap that compared to Bitcoin in 2014. That's amazing.
Yeah, you see a cryptocurrency now with a market cap under like 100 million, you're like, it's probably nothing.
Yeah, it's probably going to That's lame. Although you want to get it, you kind of want to get in. It's part of the fun. One of the things I enjoy doing is I have a BitPay Bitcoin debit card. Everybody has it. I mean, in our space. Actually, there's not that many in circulation, but those of us who have them, we know each other. But I was at the UPS store the other day, and I used it, and the guy said, "Oh wow, BitPay. So you're Bitcoin?" Yeah. He goes, "Oh, listen, I don't need Bitcoin, but I buy." And he started listing all these weird assets that he's mining, and trading, and he loves it. He loves it when they go up. He doesn't mind it when they go down. He just likes to play. And I think it's one way to think about it. Just have fun, rather than staking everything, on the success of this or that asset. We don't know. None of us really know what's going to work. That's the purpose of the market, right? To discover these things, right?
Yeah, like I had no idea professional wrestling would ever be popular.
I know, right?
I still don't understand why people go and watch these guys fake fight. But it's in the market wants that, right? So that's the only way is just put things out in the market.
Yeah, who can predict fidget spinners and all the rest
Even
of it?
Even still to this day, I don't have any idea why anyone still thinks Dogecoin has any value.
That is so sometimes do you ever wonder if it's just Bitcoin?
It's just a
Bitcoiners trolling
it's just a
people?
Joke. It's just a joke.
Well, the price is the price is really low. It's like 0.0001 or something. But the market cap is actually quite high. I mean, it's so weird, and it never goes away. In fact, isn't it the fourth or the fifth highest market cap cryptocurrency?
I'm not sure about that, but I know it's definitely up there for sure. It's in the top 50 for sure.
And it's basically a rebranded Litecoin, as far as I know, with a high inflation rate.
You can't explain it, but that's sort of like how fun the market is, though,
Yeah.
And the thing about it too is the people who really buy these things are really into it. They're so into it,
right?
And that's why I don't think we've had this major sell-off that's gone crazy down, because I know most people that I know, including probably yourself and pretty much everyone I know. If Bitcoin goes down like 40%, we're not thinking about selling. We're thinking about buying way more.
That is so true. The mentality has changed. I have to tell you, though, see, I had to grow up in the space. I had to kind of sort of mature, because when I can't remember the exact values, but am I remembering right? But at some point, this is a couple of years ago, Bitcoin hit, I think, 600. I may be wrong about this, but I have a vague sense. Let's say this is what happened. It hit 600, and then it just fell off the cliff, and it dropped down to like 230 or something like that. Well, I had just written, so this must have been the spring of late spring 2013. I had just written a series of articles on Bitcoin, and I was one of the first people to write about this towards a mainstream audience. Like there were plenty of code guys out there, and there were a handful of, like you and a handful of others were writing in this kind of slightly rarefied anarchist space, But I was writing towards, I was working for laissez-faire at the time, writing for a big mainstream audience, and a lot of people were kind of scandalized. They thought that I had fallen for a Ponzi scheme, that I was attempting a pump and dump. And
I've heard them all.
Right, and so I write. My articles came out as the currency was rising and rising and rising, and how it always happens. There's always a little miniature hysteria when you get this kind of like super steep, increases in the price. And so my article hit, and like the thing had just peaked, and so a lot of people found out about Bitcoin from my writings, went out and bought it, and then. Right, they lost their shirts, right? Because suddenly now it's down to $235 or whatever it was. So I faced this massive backlash on social media, And people were going, Bitcoin's dying, what are you scamming people? You got everybody to buy at the high, it's the worst. And I'm like, look, I'm just writing about a technology. I'm not giving any investment recommendations here. What do I know? But I really faced a huge backlash. And I remember those days, Jeff, sitting at my desk, sweating it out. As the price fell, and it fell, and it fell. I remember it just getting hot and sweaty. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, watching markets change that you can't control. You're suddenly just like sweating, you're worried, you're pacing, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I was so concerned about it. And this went on for days, and I had people like deriding me, denouncing me. Yeah. And I felt like invested in a higher price. I did. But I couldn't cause that to happen. I couldn't cause a higher price to happen. So I felt really like the ceiling was crashing in on me. As I look back, it's all an illusion. I mean, I didn't need to feel it. I should have just been chill and gone, okay, goes up, goes down, whatever. That's what you should say. But I sweated it out. I felt so emotionally invested in a higher price. It's the last thing you want to do. So I called up my friend. My friend in Argentina, James Bowman, had a sense that I was kind of losing it, because he could just. He could tell. And also I was new in the space. So he calls me up and he said, Jeffrey, listen, this is the way Bitcoin behaves. It goes way up and pulls back. It loses a third of its earnings, maybe half. And then, it goes into the doldrums for a while, then we rocket up again to the new higher. And this is the way it's going to go on for the next 10 years. So just calm down. And he really was like that. He was like, everything is fine. There is nothing to worry about. At the time, I couldn't believe him. Because I'm on the phone going, James, you don't understand. This is a fucking calamity. It's like, no, it is not. Well, that was my first big experience dealing with the unpredictable swings of Bitcoin. Now, I don't even, Now I'm James Bowman, right? I'm like, oh, sure, no problem. 3,000, 2,000, what does it matter? It's good. It's a matter of kind of getting good at it and understanding the way markets behave, essentially, right?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this sort of stuff since early 1990s when I started Stockhouse.com, the top financial website in Canada. I've been writing about financial stocks and then cryptocurrencies, gold and silver for like the last 25 years. So to me, this is like, I'm so used to this sort of stuff. Like, if I would have known you were going through that, I would have called you, relax. This is totally normal. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. Just a few weeks ago, when Bitcoin hit 3,000, I went on and I said, hey, I recommended it at $3. So anyone who had listened to me back then made 100,000% gain. Pretty good, right? I felt good about myself. Like, man, I hope a lot of people did. Isn't that amazing? I don't even know them, and maybe I helped them make a fortune. And then Bitcoin went from $3,000 to $2,700 3 days later, and a guy on YouTube goes, Berwick, you scammer, what is this, some sort of Ponzi scheme? I bought in at $3,000. I'm down 10%. Is this some sort of pump and dump? And it's like you can't listen to them,
I know. This is right. And I remember recommending it at some point when it was $1,000, and then it fell to $600, I think. And I had a friend of mine who bought a ton. He said, because of you, I lost my shirt. I'm like, it's not because of me, all right? I'm recommending a technology. How you ride the price swings is really going to be up to your own judgment and your own sense. I said, but if I were you, I'd hold on to it. And I think he did. And now he's a winner, right? And
he's probably not calling you thanking you.
No,
it's a totally thankless sort of thing.
Thankless.
This sort of stuff.
But isn't it so funny? And there's about the problem. People buy high and sell low. This is what they're subject to the waves of. You don't even know that it's happening to you. But if you just wake up one day and you think, I got to have some ether. It seems like everybody has ether, and I don't. Chances are that it's overpriced.
Yeah.
That's. But
if
it's
your
hard to
average
tell.
person feels like they need to buy it, that's probably time to sell.
Yeah.
And actually, I did say to sell when Bitcoin hit 3,000. That guy didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I said to sell Ethereum at 400. It's now 200. So I could just see it because I was seeing everyone. I've seen people going crazy on the internet.
Experience. You could feel it.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, I've gone through this so much.
When everything's blowing up.
I saw one guy say he was going to sell everything he owns and buy cryptocurrencies right when Bitcoin was hitting around 3,000.
Yeah. See, that sounds.
I was like, what?
I know.
There's got to be close to a top right now.
I get it, but it's funny. You have to have your level of experience to be able to discern these psychological waves of hysteria that are out in the markets, because otherwise you get swept along with him, unknowingly,
Absolutely.
unsuspectingly.
And sadly, as so many people have this, I've lost a lot of money by listening to things. In fact, Alan Greenspan, I lost so much because I didn't know how it all worked, central banking, back in the early 1990s. Remember the irrational exuberance thing that he came up with? So I had just made about $50,000 on a gold stock by accident almost. And I thought, I'll double it up real fast. And I turn on CNBC and it's Alan Greenspan. And he goes, it's irrational exuberance when the Dow Jones was at 5,500. And I was like, well, if the central bank guy thinks it's too high, so I shorted the market, and it went straight up to like 8,000 right afterwards. I lost everything.
Interesting.
But never
and
did
he later came around and said, well, these high valuations are totally justified because of technological change.
Yeah, he'll say
and then, of course, 2008 happened.
But it never would have crossed my mind to blame Alan Greenspan for that, right? It was my decision based on information. Now, I could maybe go, I'm never listening to Alan Greenspan again because he's obviously totally wrong on that kind of stuff. But to actually blame the person who was telling you information that you acted upon
it's funny, too. I used to work for Agora Financial, and they had a problem, and they explained it to me at one point. They said, the only time we can get people interested in certain stocks and assets and investment strategies, things like that, is when there's something in the air that's sort of...
It's already gone super high.
And people get fascinated by it, like, I guess I need to be doing this thing. It's the only time they can really market their products is when people already have this sort of... they're feeling this intensity, this desire for the thing, but it's at that very moment it's very likely to be in the market top.
Yep.
So as a company, Agora had a problem that it seemed like they're forever making the most of their money by selling investment products at the height of the market, after which everything would fall. But it was a problem for them as a marketing company because they said, we can't market something that nobody cares about.
Yep.
Even though the thing that nobody cares about is probably the thing you should be buying. So it's a catch-22.
Yeah, actually my partner, Ed Bugos, came from Agora, and he was writing a gold stock newsletter, and he said to sell all gold and gold stocks in 2006, 2007, right before they went down like 90%. And all his newsletter subscribers canceled, and they fired him. But if they would have listened to him, right?
That's totally believable.
And so when I heard about that with him, I'm like, come work with me because we're going to actually tell people this. So actually that's what happened. So when cryptocurrencies all went to 3,000 Bitcoin about a month ago, we got a flood of new subscribers. Just absolutely, we're just so many new subscribers now. And first newsletter I wrote right then with all these new subscribers was, hey, I know you just signed up because you're so excited, you want to buy cryptocurrencies. Do not buy anything right now. Just wait. There's going to be a pullback.
Right. But it's a thankless task to be right. Actually, I had a friend of mine who's an economist in Australia. They worked for the largest investment consulting banking firm, investment house in all of Australia. I think it was in Melbourne. And he was the one economist among, 250 or however many they employ, who correctly called the real estate bust. He was fired. You're right, he was fired.
Oh, I should have mentioned my partner Ed Bugos. He was fired from Agora for saying to sell gold stocks right before gold stocks tanked. He actually worked for Agora because he was fired from being a broker because he told everyone to sell tech stocks in 1999. So there you go.
It's such a funny industry. It's like the people who are right they have to get rid of.
Because if you own the brokerage, you want your brokers to be selling to those people who want what they want, even if they're all going to lose their shirts. It's like, that's the way the business is, and that's unfortunately why most people don't realize, you don't listen to most of those financial advisors. They just don't have your interests in mind for the most part.
For the most part they don't. I mean, nobody knows the future for sure, but a lot of these people get really embedded in their own models. I mean, I think about the famous case of long-term capital management hedge fund. I mean, 3 Nobel laureates or whatever it was, a perfect track record, 40% returns, blah, blah, blah. Life was perfect until it wasn't. And when it wasn't, it was a calamity because there was too much confidence that these guys knew what they were doing. I think ever since then, people are right to have a little bit of doubt, about expertise on that level. Just because you get a Nobel Prize doesn't mean you can run a hedge fund.
Well, they gave Barack Obama a Nobel Peace Prize for bombing numerous countries. So
that's right.
It doesn't really have much value, that name anymore anyway. But we've been talking for a while. I know you're doing so much here at Freedom Fest.
I've got a gig coming up here in a few minutes. I think I'm.
Yeah, I figured you do.
I don't know, some sort of debate or something. But I'm doing, I guess, I'm doing a lot at this conference. I have to say, Jeff, that, well, I think the conference is going to be good. I do. I don't know if you've been out there. There's a lot of energy. So I actually am optimistic about this year. I think something good's going to happen. I am debating Trump. I guess, I don't know if it's tomorrow or the next day. Renewing that debate, from last year where I warned everybody that what was coming, and I got booed. I got booed by the audience.
I have to say, I watched your debate. I thought you were really good, but I didn't quite fully believe everything you were saying, like how fascist and all that kind of stuff. So even I, like a big fan of yours and a guy who's like on the same pages as you and most things, like I was like, I'm not sure about this, but you were totally right on that. Like he totally was.
Well, he's not been as horrible as I thought, but the funny thing about Trump is that all the things he's good on, he doesn't care about. The things he's terrible on, he really cares about. And he's doing all the shitty things and none of the good things, So he's just been, in many ways, the best I can say about him is clownish. And the other thing I think from the perspective of you and me as anarchists, we can't be unhappy about the kind of chaos that he's causing, however inadvertently. So that's not bad.
Yeah, he's, this entire political system is just turning into a total farce in every single way. And how's that a bad thing for us?
I know, it's good. It's a slow motion collapse, And
the government's bankrupt, absolutely bankrupt. $20 trillion in debt, the U.S. government now. The Federal Reserve's, out of bullets. Like the fiat currency is going to collapse. Everything's actually looking really good for us. The only thing is we got to make sure that as it all collapses, enough people understand the problem was the governments and the central banks.
That's the most important thing. We have an educational job to do. Yeah. And I think you're right. There's no hope in the legislative process. I mean, when I looked at Trump's tax proposal, I thought this thing is amazing. If it could really happen that we could slash business corporate taxation by 2/3, get back to a world standard on capital gains, and instead of pillaging everybody all the time, cut income tax, that would set off an unbelievable prosperity in this country. But wouldn't you know it? I mean, it was just a press conference, and there's been no effort.
It was written on like a back of a napkin. It was like 3 sentences.
It didn't amount to anything, and there's been no focus.
And all the Trump supporters said, "See, look," and then no one's talked about it ever since.
I know, and now Trump spends all of his time attacking CNN. It's like, I'm sorry, CNN's not taxing me, but and he expends no political capital to do anything that would benefit you and me. All of his political capital is expended on things that don't benefit you and me and hurt a lot of people. So that's the way Trump has come down. It's very, very sad. On the other hand, we shouldn't have faith in the political system.
No. So it's actually good. And it's just going to get worse and worse from here.
Yeah.
It's sort of like idiocracy a little bit, the president's just on Twitter all day saying stupid stuff.
I know, it's so funny.
It's just kind of funny to watch.
We're looking at this going, oh my God, this is the president. That's the way it should be in a way. We need to think of these people as human beings, especially sucky human beings, actually. Not godlike figures, not God emperors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you got to get running. Is there anything that you wanted to mention? You work at FEE or anything?
Foundation for Economic Education is really making some immense strides in commentary on free markets, and thanks for your support of that. And I send out a daily email to everybody. We got 100,000 people on this now. It's very nice. FEE.org.
That's great. We'll have the link to that down below. So check that out. A lot of great writing by Jeffrey Tucker and many others there as well. Yeah. Trying to think. The Max Borders, or who am I thinking of? Is that him?
Max used to be at FEE.
He's gone now?
Yeah, he's gone. So it's me and Danny Sanchez that work together, and so many other people, Jason Riddle, and Larry Reed is the president of FEE. It's a 71-year-old organization, but we're on the cutting edge of commentary on blockchain, and so we're doing good work, I think.
That's great. So check that out. We'll have that in the links down below. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share, and share this video with everyone out there. And we're going to head back down to Freedom Fest. It's kind of free.
Yeah.
It's not quite as Anarchapulco.
No, it's not Anarchapulco.
But it is
what it is.
It is what it is. So please like, subscribe, share this video. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.